The Souls games are my favorite series of games of all time. The consistency of quality is something that I find unparalleled in other titles. So here we're going to be ranking the games from good to life-changing. Keep in mind, this is just my subjective opinion on the quality of these games. If you hold one that I rank lower in high regard, that's awesome. I want to hear from you guys, so let me know down below how you'd rank the games. Unfortunately, I have not had the pleasure of playing Demon Souls. Perhaps if I can one day get a hold of a PS5, I'll add it to the list. I tried really hard, man. But for now, we're going to be doing all the remaining gold mines. My introduction to the Soul series was quite late. One day I was visiting a friend. It had been a while since I'd seen him, and he told me I had to start a save file for this game that he recently platinumed. The game was Bloodborne. I was hooked. But because I didn't own a PlayStation, I did the next most reasonable thing. I instantly downloaded Dark Souls 3, which had just entered a Steam summer sale. I then played the games in reverse order to the chagrin of diehard Souls fans. The reason this is pertinent is because when I was endeavoring on my reverse run of the Souls series, I had no preconceptions. I expected nothing. My friend hadn't even played the Souls games, only Bloodborne, so I entered these games with no story connection, no emotional connection, and no prodding friend to weigh my opinions against. I didn't access any of the Souls communities that existed, and this means when I hit our first entry, I had no place in my mind to be disappointed. Number 6. I was completely unaware of the controversies surrounding this game in the community. It's consistently rated the worst, cited as a bad Souls game, made fun of as being a product of the B team. Upon my first completion of vanilla Dark Souls 2, I was an avid Dark Souls 2 defender. It noticeably was a weaker entry than the only other game I had experience with at the time, Dark Souls 3, but upon completion of the whole series, I thought it was placed nicely, perhaps even above some of the other entries. Being a Dark Souls 2 defender, I took the plunge into a special edition that had allegedly fixed some of the graphical issues and enemy placements. I was excited to dive headfirst into the world that I considered a 10 out of 10 yet again. This version was Scholar of the First Sin, and it was not nearly as enjoyable as the vanilla game for me. This version of the game provided my first direct experience with the frustrations that Dark Souls 2 dissenters have. I may have understood on a conceptual level the issue of spammed enemies for artificial difficulty and the minor mechanical malfunctions such as roll attacks not facing a locked target, but I didn't feel them. Vanilla Dark Souls 2 did strike me to be on the easier side, and I suppose to compensate for this, Scholar of the First Sin decided to place an unbelievable amount of enemies in the smallest possible areas. Some make absolutely no sense, like the dragon placed right outside of the old Dragon Slayer arena. The enemy count is jacked up to frustrating levels, compiling on the infuriating runbacks to many of the bosses. If I had done this listing before playing Scholar of the First Sin, which somewhat marked my memories with this game, it could have perhaps escaped the last place position. There are some logical pitfalls with the map layout, and the speed feels significantly slower. It features the worst areas in the series in the optional DLC sections, which allegedly are designed for co-op, but are infuriating nonetheless. Gank boss fights, reskins aplenty, and so forth. There are still huge positives with this game, however. I love the introduction of power stances and build variety, and my favorite hub of the series in Majula. The DLC all pose fantastic boss counters, and the world is full of life and color, much more so than the drab Dark Souls 3 color palette. If I take a step back from my most recent Scholar of the First Sin experience, which raises my heart rate just to reminisce on, I can easily say that Dark Souls 2 is a great game and absolutely worth the adventure. I have so many unforgettable memories with this game, such as the reveal of King Vendrick, the Burnt Ivory King War, seeing Majula for the first time, fighting those ass-mad pigs there, witnessing the Dragon Aerie, seeing Hyde's Tower of Flame for the first time, being a part of so many unique biomes, and so forth. But unfortunately, it just doesn't quite live up to what the other games have to offer. Number 5. Many of you would probably place Dark Souls 1 as the best game of the series, and possibly the best game of all time. Dark Souls 1 is undeniably a magical experience. No other game in the series captures the same atmosphere that the original does. The interconnectivity and level design is unrivaled, and I love the freedom to take your run in any direction you please. This world feels lived in and was constructed with care. Each moment from the game is unquestionably iconic, from the battle with the Bell Gargoyles to the discovery of Anor Londo. Detractors will claim that Blighttown is a blight on the game's quality, but I might actually consider it one of my favorite levels of the series. Sure, it's challenging, but it's exactly what I'm looking for in a Souls game. There's actually a whole video on why Blighttown makes sense like thematically too, about this journey down within the depths of the world. Also, could be the depths of your struggles, the depths of your internal demons, all these things, right? I found a video on that somewhere on YouTube. But really, there's enough content in this game, thematically and literally, to discuss it seemingly endlessly. However, there are a few things that bring the game down just a bit for me. It is quite dated at this point, and the heights reached in later installments are only possible because of the constant iterations throughout the years. FromSoft was able to refine the format continually over time, improving combat, enemies, bosses, and areas. At times, bosses can feel like dated AI rather than living beings to battle, and the second half of the game genuinely suffers from some rushed development. However, outside of this, you can't deny this game is a huge step up from Dark Souls 2 and has S-tier levels of character in every corner of the world, even from a FromSoft game. It is true that there is no other game quite like DS1 in the series, and I say that as a huge compliment. It even boasts one of the best DLCs in a series riddled with 11 out of 10 downloadable content. Perhaps the jank on the development side is something to be cherished, even if it is missing that final level of polish that we can see in games like our next entry. Number 4. Now that we've reached my top 4, I'm gonna be honest. On any particular day, any of these 4 could be switched around. Therefore, this is my ranking for this day and this day only. Ask me again in a month and I guarantee my answers will have changed. Sekiro achieved exactly what I've always wanted from a Souls game. As opposed to the non-linearity of Dark Souls 1, Sekiro features a streamlined, combat-centric linear approach. This allowed every encounter to be curated to the perfect difficulty. Every boss that I faced in Sekiro was a real difficult mechanical challenge, maybe except for the folding screen monkeys, that was overcome with many focused attempts. I couldn't go roll through half the game and then come back to an early game boss. This meant every single matchup was a true test. And with the creation of the posture system, the game perfected the Souls combat formula. There is perhaps nothing more satisfying in any of these games than engaging in Sekiro's combat. The environmental set pieces reach their peak as well, with the early encounter with the serpent being a highlight of my entire Souls journey. The boss and area quality are more consistent than any game in the series, even reaching the pinnacle of some experimental gimmick fights such as with the Divine Dragon. The reasons this game doesn't instantly reach the top tier for me today are that the soundtrack is not quite as memorable as some of the others, and the game does not have a DLC. Imagine rating these games without their DLC. It seems to me that almost every game provides its best content in its DLC, like it was allowed to perfect its formula in that one section of the game. Of course, Miyazaki likely saw this game as a perfected, self-contained story and was prepared to work on the gargantuan task of Elden Ring development, but it still felt as though this game was discarded preemptively. With such a striking combat system and consistent quality, the DLC would have likely reached heights rarely seen in the series. I can now blast through this game in a couple hours, as I have become so intuitively adjusted to every single battle, and I love that. I just wish there was a little bit more. I'm planning on ranking all the bosses in the series in a set of videos coming out over the next whatever so period of time, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Number 3. As mentioned previously, Dark Souls 3 is my first full Souls game experience, and it was a grueling one. You guys would laugh so hard if you saw my first playthrough. Nearly every boss after Udex took me over 30 to 50 tries, and up to 70 on bosses claimed to be too easy, such as Abyss Watchers. I fought and slogged my way for over 75 hours to finally claim my spot in the Kiln of the First Flame. Reflecting back on the game now with a fresh perspective, I think Dark Souls 3 achieved the pinnacle of boss encounters in the series. An inordinate amount of my favorite encounters of all time are in this game, and not even all in the DLC. From Pontiff Sullivan to Soul of Cinder, Nameless King, Dancer of the Boreal Valley, Abyss Watchers, and more, it's hard to believe that this game shipped with so many bangers. The combat feels fluid and fast, reminiscent of Bloodborne's more aggressive style. This suits my playstyle perfectly, as I was never really a fan of the shield combat in the Souls games anyways. The bosses are more ambitious and full of life and character, and despite the dulled color palette, the world is as well. It used to be the game I recommended for newcomers to the series because it has the polish you want in a AAA title, the Dark Souls difficulty, the most iconic fights in the series, and a more streamlined experience all around. There's almost nothing that this game leaves me wanting. Perhaps a few more biomes to explore? but that is somewhat contrary to the themes of the game and the depiction of an ashen world. I'm quite happy with the game as is, and consider it an all-time classic. Some of the more consistent complaints I see from Dark Souls 3 detractors is that it doesn't really have its own identity and is a rehash of Dark Souls 1. There are certainly some character and story elements that retread past themes, although isn't that inherently a theme of the series itself? These people usually are referring to the reuse of characters like the Onion Knight or the rehashing of Anor Londo. I find these complaints to be quite silly considering each thing that is revisited is done in a transformative way. It's a commentary and a transformation, not a copy and paste. I don't find the game to be easier than DS1 or DS2 vanilla, so I don't really understand that complaint either, which is one that I see sometimes. I could see the complaint of the lack of life in the areas, but the boss fights themselves pose more vigor than any in Dark Souls 2 do for me. Again, I consider this an all-time classic and a game that I'll always remember as my first Souls game. Okay, so the final two I've gone back and forth on over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I simply could not decide which I want to place first. It's like choosing a favorite kid, but you actually do love both. Simply keep this in mind. I find these two games indistinguishable in terms of quality, so the ranking is merely symbolic. They both have earned the top spot for me. Number 2. I will say, if Bloodborne expanded to the length of Elden Ring, it would have stepped past Elden Ring confidently. Elden Ring is possibly 3 Bloodbornes long, and that's without any DLC. I somewhat think of Elden Ring as like a greatest hits of FromSoft in their design. The open world is a perfection of the non-linearity of Dark Souls 1, allowing for endless wonder and exploration. The weapon variety and power stances are a perfection of the weapon additions Dark Souls 2 brought to the table. The colorful, vibrant biomes also perfect the Dark Souls 2 concept of bringing as many beautiful ideas to life as possible. It brings the polish of Dark Souls 3 to another level, with picturesque graphics and vistas to behold regularly, and magnificent bosses to keep the player enthralled. It carries on the torch of Sekiro's posture system, giving depth and variety to combat itself, never before seen in a main Souls game. And it poses some of the most twisted and creative character and world designs that the series has seen, matching Bloodborne in that regard. And it doesn't have brain suckers. I hate the brain suckers.
Could this be any more obnoxious to do? I'm about to rage. About to rage real hard, man.
Seriously, in terms of pure discovery, I felt like a Souls noob again. I remember seeing the map just grow, and then grow, and then grow, and grow, and grow, and it never stopped. This game just keeps on giving, and I'm so glad that Elden Ring has become like a culturally defining game. It's been able to pull in so many people that I've been begging to try a Souls game for years. Perhaps it will be a gateway drug for many of these new players to attempt the gauntlet of Soulsborne that exists prior to Elden Ring. I sure hope so, because every other game in the series has an argument to take its place at the top. If Elden Ring was reduced to the size of Sekiro, it would likely only reach Leyndell. I just can't believe that they managed to fit so much content into this game. Yes, some of it ends up getting reused at times, okay. It's like unbelievably understandable considering this is a game that takes people over 100 hours to beat at times. A lot of these bosses and enemies are so hidden too that most players won't even find the reskins. I'm continually baffled that such a masterpiece was allowed to be created, and we were allowed to play it. All praise Miyazaki and his team. I can't believe that another game managed to top this life-changing experience for me. Number 1. As mentioned previously, this is a game that was my gateway drug into the world of Soulsborne. I've even gone so far as to get a tattoo of the Hunter's Mark as a tribute to the game. Follow me on Instagram if you're interested, by the way. I connected with it on that visceral of a level, pun intended. I have always been someone who identifies with the dark and disturbing more than the light and the beautiful. Dark Souls is twisted for sure, but the glowing rays of possibility and hope and inspiration are aplenty. Bloodborne is not. It's terror. It's desperation. It's confusion. These are the things that I thrive in, and seeing the twisted mind of Miyazaki reflect my inner demons is cathartic. I suppose the hunters going mad and turning into beasts is somewhat analogous to the undead going hollow, but rather than fade quietly into unfamiliarity, hunters choose to go out with a bang, each one more disturbing than the last. I find inspiration in the hunters who manage to fight on in a world so plagued with disgust and despair. The beast boss encounters of this game are far more enthralling than those of the Souls games, generally speaking, as the creature design here is the best of the series. I've seen boss rankings dismiss encounters such as Vicar Amelia or Cleric Beast as generic, where I found each and every one to be top-tier bouts with monsters of atrocity and horror. The streets of Yharnam are a perfectly twisted setting for the unsettling themes of the game to take place, and I love that we did the reverse of we do in the Souls games. Rather than beginning in the wild or a forest and traveling to a big city, we start in the city and we venture outwards. Every subtle change, from the rally system of health allowing you to gain back lost health with relentless aggression, to the quick step dodge, to the darker themes, to the live orchestra recorded music, knocks it out of the park. There is no other game I would feel as compelled to research the lore of, and the story of every character is disturbing and captivating, Father Gascoigne being a prime example. Even bosses that people tend to dislike in this game, such as Lawrence, are absolutely adored by me, and while writing this, I feel compelled to go grab my old PS4 and pull it out to revisit this game. I actually did my first ever full playthrough of this game on this channel, so if you're interested in watching that, I'll link it.
But with all that said, I guess I'm just gonna have to say, as for now at least, Bloodborne goes down as my favorite Souls game of all time.
Thank you for all the support lately, by the way. I want to do a lot of other stuff on this channel, but I'm not really sure yet. I have a main channel that I do music stuff on, which I always link in my description as well. But this kind of just blew up out of nowhere. I was going to do these boss rankings expecting to get maybe 1,000 views, and now like that the channel's exploding. I'm like, might as well make some stuff. Because, you know, I've been wanting to, but now I have the motivation to since people are going to be watching it. Yeah, make sure you guys let me know what you think for ratings down at the bottom. And, oh yeah, maybe you guys can let me know of things you'd like to see me do, because I'm open to some ideas. Okay, peace.